Guys, what's good, Angel Knots? It's your boy Young Sinai.
Angel Knot.
But first, I'm going to go ahead and get things started with a prayer. Father God, thank you for today, Lord. Thank you for everyone who tunes in. Thank you for everyone who watches the video on the rewatch. I ask that you protect them, bless them and their families, and let them know you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Angel Knot.
All right. So let's go ahead and get this popping. All right, do you remember these 10 short-lived 90s cartoons from 1995? Let's see how many of them we remember.
And a handful of superheroes. Welcome to the review. Today we're taking a look at 10 short-lived cartoons from 1995. Leave us a comment below if you remember watching any of these. Number 10, Two Stupid Dogs.
That big dog, he looks familiar, but I don't remember this title.
Two Stupid Dogs.
Originally airing on TBS, the series did technically hold down 2 full seasons between its debut in fall of 1993 and its demise come spring of 95. For such a long stretch of time, the show somehow got away with only ever producing 26 episodes in total. Touted as the Hanna-Barbera's response to the success of Nickelodeon's The Ren and Stimpy Show, which was one of the first 3...
Y'all big Ren and Stimpy fans? I can never get with it, man. It just wasn't funny to me. Like, I love Doug and I love Rugrats, but Ren and Stimpy, they just doing too much.
Nicktoons premiering alongside Doug and Rugrats in 91 and had seen a continuous rise in popularity ever since. Intentionally rude at times and packed with unanticipated and eccentric humor, Two Stupid Dogs is a hard title to forget, especially with that repetitive intro theme yelling the title into viewers' faces countless times during each opening. Hanna-Barbera would opt to swap out the cat for a second dog and try their luck at fitting their classic cartoon style into a more modern landscape of animated programs. Two Stupid Dogs would revolve around a mismatched pair of stray, idiotic dogs, neither of whom is named on or off the program, who generally wandered around the city, getting into wacky misadventures.
Was they at a strip club? What kind of cartoon is this? Was this for kids?
Smaller of the main duo has a fear of cats and tends to suffer the brunt of the misfortune that occurs during each comedy of errors laden episode. Big Dog is fixated on food at all times and not nearly as energetic as his spry counterpart. He's not as dumb as Little Dog, but that's not saying much. Episodes consisted of multiple stories featuring our main characters, and sandwiched between would be a short of super secret squirrel. Segments themselves are only a few minutes in length, so even new viewers will find themselves quickly burning through the 2 short seasons. This is unfortunate because most signs online point to the series as being very fondly remembered. The show was actually nominated for a Daytime Emmy Award, but came in second to Nickelodeon's mega popular Rugrats.
Dang, that was that popular? Is that they was nominated for an Emmy? I don't know that cartoon at all.
Even if you've never caught an episode, you'll still most likely remember being bombarded by the countless checkerboard bumpers Cartoon Network would fill space with.
That's probably why I remember that dog.
Featuring these 2 exceedingly stupid dogs. Number 9, The Moxie Show.
I feel funky.
I don't know.
An anthology television series first airing as The Moxie Pirate Show in December of 93, making it the first original show on Cartoon Network. Up until then, it had relied solely upon reruns of old cartoons, since Turner Broadcasting System had launched the new network the year prior. On November 6, 1994, with the introduction of Flea, the show was rebranded and relaunched as The Moxie Show, and changed to a half-hour format. That's a full half-hour shorter than the previously Moxie Pirate.
If y'all have seen this, let me know.
Episodes would play on Sunday nights. Cartoon Network wanted to create both a mascot that would perform animated skits in between airings and a live host for special events. Enter Moxie, the the anthropomorphic dog, voiced by the unmistakable and pitch challenge Bobcat Goldthwait. Moxie supposedly works for Cartoon Network as a janitor, but secretly hijacks their signal every Sunday to broadcast from his makeshift closet studio, made up of a classic cartoons interspliced with shorts featuring commentary from Moxie. Easily recognizable to most would be their list of regularly incorporated reruns, including Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, and
So was he kind of like Space Ghost from Coast to Coast? Like, I think Space Ghost will bring on different cartoon characters. Is that kind of what they were going for? I'm kind of confused.
Popeye, leftovers from the dark age of animation. Some viewers will remember Penn Jillette of the comedy magic duo Penn and Teller voicing the show's new arrival, Flea. Others might be more familiar with Flea's voice being supplied by Chris Rock further into the series' run. Reception was generally poor all around, and even worse, Moxie himself was called out as being the most overhyped and disappointing new cable television host this fall.
Wow.
One episode was broadcast under the moniker The Moxie and Flea Show, but whether that was an oversight or an attempt to boost interest, the world may never know. The Moxie Show has never aired since or been released for purchase, making it, at the time, lost media. Number 8, The Brothers Grunt.
They're always out on the hunt, yeah, out of their minds, oh indeed they are, trying to find Harry.
In the early 90s, MTV's Beavis and Butthead was coming under fire for being a bad influence on children. MTV decided to temporarily cancel Beavis and Butthead to make necessary changes to the content. MTV turned to Danny Antonucci for a replacement show. Believe it or not, this was the show. The Brothers Grunt was about the leader of the Grunts, Perry, who had escaped to live among humans. His 5 brothers, Frank, Dean, Bing, Sammy, and Tony, have to find him, or else the Brotherhood of Grunts will cease to exist. Originally airing from August 15th, 1994 to April 9th, 1995, audiences will either love or hate the series based upon precisely the same reasonings. It met a barrage of negative reception after premiering and is said to be considered one of the worst animated television shows ever made. Many found the art grotesque and the naming of the 5 characters after famous crooners from the 1950s to be anything but clever. The Chicago Tribune claimed MTV had created the most repulsive creatures ever to show up on a television screen. On the other hand, some will have enjoyed every moment of crude toilet humor and treat the obscure title as a cult classic. There will no doubt be fans who tuned in to the Brothers Grunt and continued to follow Antonucci's work right through to the more tame Ed, Edd and Eddy series that ran on Cartoon Network for 6 lucrative seasons. Fleer released trading cards based on the series in 1995, alongside other sets including The Head, The Max, and Beavis and Butthead, a relic of the time period displaying vividly rendered artworks usually depicting counterculture content, all in the same vein as the Topps Garbage Pail Kids trading cards that came before them.
I almost started collecting Garbage Pail Kids, and I was like, yo, these things are too disgusting. I don't want these.
Any of which are always worth checking out for the sake of nostalgia. Although 10 or so of these Brothers Grunt episodes have been left unaired and lost to time, 6 have been located and uploaded to YouTube. Another partially reclaimed episode later surfaced, yet the remaining 3 episodes, rumored to have been produced, have still never been confirmed to exist. Number 7, Space Strikers. Based upon the treasured literary works of Jules Verne, particularly the book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Once again, haven't heard of this. Have you guys heard of any of these? I've never heard of any of these cartoons.
But in space. Space Strikers may be most notable for being one of the first animated series to extensively use computer-generated 3D scenes. Captain Nemo commands a heavily armed super spacecraft, the Nautilus, which more closely resembles a submarine than a rocket ship. Utilizing their skills, he and his crew battle the dreaded Master Phantom and his evil minions, the Phantom Warriors, some of which include Ned Land, a fellow human, Dakar, a man from another planet who has been transformed to resemble a wolf. Yon Nick, a super intelligent alien dolphin, and a comedic three-headed robot named Algren. Together, this
Named Al Green.
ragtag Nautilus crew must save the galaxy from total domination, as the Phantoms are bent on spreading random chaos and destruction throughout the universe.
Dolphin, man.
The show itself has the look and feel of a throwback cartoon like G.I. Joe or any number of late 80s action-adventure
Except way less cool.
cartoons. Even so, the effort put in all around is always present
Imagine if you, oh my gosh, imagine if you got knocked out by a dolphin. Like a dolphin. That would be so embarrassing.
on screen, and there's very little point to when trying to figure out why the series was so short-lived. It simply couldn't
I can tell you it's because one of the main characters is a dolphin. That's not cool.
grow an audience large enough to merit being given the green light on a second season. Unfortunately, due to the fact this show wasn't very popular, it was never released on VHS.
Why?
It was nearly impossible to find footage related to this show for almost 2 decades, and at one point was considered lost media. As goes the story with many of these titles we cover on the channel, ownership of the series would inevitably wind up being transferred over to Disney in 2001, when industry juggernaut Disney acquired Fox Kids worldwide. Luckily for fans, someone had retained their home recordings from back in the day and uploaded no fewer than 13 of these seemingly lost episodes to YouTube in 2014. Number 6, Darkstalkers.
It's enough to make your blood run.
Is that where old girl comes from? Another old girl from the games? I can't remember their names, but the cat girl and the vampire girl.
Supernatural things, magic, and sorcery, they're back from out of your dreams, stalk your worst nightmares. Ghouls, zombies, werewolf, vampires, you can't be sure what lurks out there in the darkness of night.
I didn't know that they came from a cartoon.
An arcade fighting game was produced in the style of Street Fighter II and Mortal Kombat that just screamed for an animated adaptation of its own. While
Oh, so they made the game. They made the cartoon from the game. Okay.
changes no doubt done to bring the concept to a younger audience, both the level of violence featured in the arcade and the more provocative aspects of the material were toned down. What's more, the rich and in-depth lore of the franchise had to be watered down to fit the standard half-hour cartoon slot, meaning they would ultimately compromise with your basic good versus evil plotline. The show looks and sounds great, all the classic tropes are represented, and it already had a leg up on the competition with its arcade recognition. Still, people just couldn't get behind it. Fans of the game saw far too much adaptation in the series and were quick to voice their opinions against the changes. And that was the target audience the production was aiming for, so it was game over for Darkstalkers from the moment it premiered. As pleasant as it would have been to describe the program's merits, it's likely more useful to detail just how much disdain the series still receives when mentioned online today. Follow-up replies to a simple
It looked pretty cool.
Darkstalkers question posed on Reddit flooded in and were anything but flattering to the series. A few examples being the Darkstalkers TV series doesn't just suck, it's an abomination.
Oh.
Additionally, you must be a misogynist to want to watch that. And in an unprecedented move, someone declared it's actually even worse than the Mario Brothers live-action movie.
Okay. I am sick and tired of all the hate. I didn't even put this. I am sick and tired of all the hate that the Super Mario movie was getting. Okay, the original Super Mario with John Leguizamo. I can never pronounce his name. That movie was amazing. It made no sense. I didn't understand the plot, but as a kid, I probably watched it at least 48, 49 times, and I'm tired of all this internet disrespect. Like y'all didn't know it was one of the greatest movies of all time. All right, let's keep going.
Between the arcade game and subsequent first-run syndication of the show, it was popular enough to see the game ported to the PlayStation home console, later to be followed by a sequel, so there was clearly more interest in the intellectual product than TV ratings had to offer as evidence. The market was flooded with similar edgy and dark franchises, jockeying for the attention of the same audience, so many decent shows were swept under the rug. If Dark Stalkers debuted a little earlier or a little later than it had, the series would likely have gained a significantly larger following and perhaps lasted longer than the 13 episodes. Number 5, The Baby Huey Show.
Finally, something I remember. Okay, what are we, 20 shows in? Okay, this is a show that I do recall.
First appearing in a theatrical short titled Quack-a-Doodle-Doo, becoming a Paramount cartoon star during the 1950s. Baby Huey would be featured in 11 cartoons between 1951 and 1959, becoming a household name over the many decades of additional content sprinkled among other recognizable cartoon stars. Perhaps not quite as intentionally known as some larger Warner Brothers or Disney faces, but managed to keep a tinge of relevance over the years. The dim-witted Baby Duck wreaks havoc on those who he comes in contact with, as his attempts to help result in hilarious consequences. Huey is often unaware of the havoc he's causing, maintaining an innocence, even as a hungry fox attempts and fails to eat him. Carbuncle Cartoons animated the first 13 episodes, and viewers will be familiar with their style of artwork featured on the Ren and Stimpy show. Audiences weren't all too thrilled with the switch to Universal Studios for the later 13 episodes and claimed the show lost its luster. While almost nobody takes any enjoyment from kicking a cartoon while it's down, the already poor ratings it initially drew could be very misleading. This means things may have been much worse during its first 13 episodes on air than the numbers detailed. Utilizing hindsight, we may actually be able to pinpoint an unforeseen and slightly comical problem with the whole picture. Some of our subscribers will find this shocking, but younger viewers might not be all that surprised to hear. A large portion of the show's viewership had no prior experience with the classic Baby Huey cartoon or the character himself. A lot of people eagerly tuned in with high hopes in anticipating a much higher caliber of entertainment. This all stemming from the misconceptions that this Baby Huey series was somehow a spin-off of the classic Donald Duck character. Similar to the experience of discovering beloved titles like DuckTales or Darkwing Duck, imagine how devastated a kid would be to expect a wonderfully designed new cartoon star like Scrooge McDuck, only to be presented with this diaper-clad, bonnet-wearing man that was meant to humor their grandparents. Devastating to the kid and devastating to the likelihood of the series as well. You can technically say it lasted 2 seasons of 26 episodes, but it's doubtful anyone would argue that to be a success, particularly in the case of the Baby Huey show. Number 4, The Maxx. From Image Comics and Sam Keith, a Michigan-born writer and artist.
That character looks familiar, but I don't know what this is.
Who was a part of the Image Comics creator-owned character boom of the 90s, a 4-issue miniseries serving as an introduction to these grim and gritty characters. The series, however, only had 1 published issue in March of '93. Despite this setback, people immediately latched on to the intellectual property and wanted more. The comic book would soon be adapted into an animated feature as part of the MTV program Oddities, where The Maxx number 1 and number 2 were covered along with Darker Images number 1 and issues 1 through 11. While of course the material couldn't be covered in its entire depth, they did what they could with their allotted time slots, and audiences were pleased with the outcome. Within the ongoing series, The Maxx told the tale of a purple-clad being who alternated between 2 worlds. In the real world, he's a homeless guy living in a cardboard box. In the fantastical land called the Outback, he's a mighty warrior tasked with protecting the Jungle Queen. The Jungle Queen's alter ego is Julie, a self-employed social worker who has taken Max under her wing, bailing him out of jail and often letting him crash in her apartment. But both are being haunted by a serial defiler and killer named Mr. Gone. The animation frequently changes style, but this is done to show a change in perspective. In one scene,
This looked like this came on HBO.
characters may be rendered in vivid detail, but in the next they may be simplified cartoons. CGI and even live-action films are sometimes integrated and interspersed with hand-drawn animation. Critics have pointed out how much of the animation is based directly on panels from the comic. The Max remains a highly praised and discussed relic online today, as an ever-growing fan base of new viewers are introduced to the unique title. In 2019, actor Channing Tatum and producer Roy Lee announced their intent to produce a film based on the Max. In this instance, Roy Lee's company, Vertigo Entertainment, holds a first-look deal contract with Lionsgate. And perhaps the most hopeful tease so far, in January of 2024, Tatum confirmed on his Instagram that production on the film was moving forward. Number 3, Ultra Force. Based on the first version of the Ultra Force comic book,
I was like, I know Ultra Force sounds familiar, but it's because of the comic book. I didn't know there was a cartoon.
produced by Deke Productions, and would fare better than its counterpart cartoon adaptation, which would only amount to surviving mere months on air. Even with an Ultra Force action figure line produced by Galoob to build more excitement for the series. Debuting shortly thereafter in September, the show appeared to be something for fans to look forward to. The cartoon would feature the roster of Prime, Hardcase, Prototype, Topaz, Ghoul, Contrary, and Pix. It also included appearances of the Nightman and the Strangers, fellow superheroes in the comic Ultraverse. The general premise being that the Ultras, originally ordinary people who gained superpowers, began to use them for evil purposes. A group of superhero Ultras was formed, the Ultra Force, to combat the evil Ultras and protect all people of the planet. Poorly received by critics, but viewers weren't complaining. Non-stop action, a vast array of characters inhabit
It's like critics and the audience can never see eye to eye.
this new Ultraverse, and some memorable villains made for icing on the cake. Premiering in October and being summarily brought to a hastily end by December. So not only was the program canceled early, but the toy line wasn't going to recoup any losses, seeing
When were they coming out? Were they competing like with the X-Men? Because that would be, hard competition, and it looked very similar.
as how it barely lasted until the holiday shopping season. Unfortunately, it struggled to gain a foothold among so many other superhero-related properties on offer at the time. Whether fans wanted more seasons of Ultra Force or not, networks weren't interested, and so the story goes, after 13 fleeting episodes, fans were left displeased with no decent explanation as to why the studio gave up on the title in such a hurry. Number 2, the Superman-Batman Adventures.
These are the Superman
Never heard of it.
Batman Adventures.
I've never heard of Superman, and I've never heard of Batman either.
Two of the most well-known and universally loved superheroes come together to form an anthology TV series. Viewers certainly tuned in, but even with the astounding numbers of fans, ratings were looking bleak from the start. Composed of long-time rerun segments of classic Superman and Batman episodes, but now available on USA Network. However, the series would later land in time slots on both Cartoon Network and Boomerang for yet more re-airings. Each series on their own stood the test of time, but let's face it, in the year 1995, and the public is tired of these lazy, half-hearted excuses the networks dare to promote as new shows. They were going to have to provide fresh, original content because people would rather see these old cartoon reruns on VHS commercial-free, leading to a revamping of the combo concept for a future series to be titled The New Batman Superman Adventures, with slightly more emphasis on the Batman portion.
That's a very lazy title. That's like when Nintendo said, this is not the Nintendo 3DS, it's the new 3DS.
This made sense at the time when considering how much acclaim and commendation Batman the Animated Series had acquired in recent years. Although it was part of the DC Animated Universe, each half-hour episode in the 90-minute block featured either a single rerun from the original Superman the Animated Series, the original Batman the Animated Series, or a brand new story featuring Batman from the new Batman Adventures. This went over much better with audiences as the combined forces mustered together 3 years worth of episodes over on Kids WB between 97 and 2000.
And Kids WB back then was lit, man. It was so many great shows on that.
The sole reason anyone would be encouraged to repay the Superman Batman Adventures a visit today will probably only appeal to the respective fandoms. The Superman Batman Adventures included for the first time on American television the 8 lost episodes of the 83-84 season of Super Friends. Number 1, Dumb and Dumber, the animated series.
I'm trying to think, do I remember that? I kind of remember that. I don't know.
Dumb and Dumber, the animated series, is the first Hanna-Barbera produced show to premiere on ABC, as well as the final Hanna-Barbera production to air on broadcast network television, and one of the last Saturday morning cartoons on the network not associated with the Walt Disney Company. Could this series have been so awful that it killed ABC Saturday morning cartoons as we knew them? If not solely responsible, it definitely had a role to play in the significant changes to come following its termination. Based directly off the smash hit comedy starring James Carey and Jeff Daniels, the animated version would feature awkward and forced goofiness, laughably simplistic art style, and a whole lot more toilet humor than most people can stand. Movie adaptations don't always do so hot on the small screen, and oftentimes animated reimaginings do even worse. But when you take into account the massive budget and the big names associated with Dumb and Dumber, the animated series, calling the show an utter failure is still sugarcoating it.
Oh,
The
wow.
opening theme, for some bizarre reason, seems to feature 2 of the most irritating frequencies audible by the human ear. The tune itself is almost catchy and doesn't stray far from the norm on these lyric-free 90s cartoon intros. The issue is the head-splitting 4,000 hertz screech throughout the song that somehow passed as music. The majority of viewers had enough long before it reached its 13th and final episode. Not to say it wasn't worth a try, both Ace Ventura: Pet Detective and The Mask were.
I remember Ace Ventura Pet Detective cartoon. That was pretty good. I do not remember The Mask. Wait, I don't. This is kind of fuzzy.
Carey films that found modest success as cartoons and spawned multiple seasons. Between Hanna-Barbera and New Line Television, the audience was once again left pondering which one is dumb and which one is dumber. Well, there you have it. 10 short-lived cartoons from
All right, so that was interesting. I don't remember 95% of those cartoons. I've never heard of. Do you guys? Let me know in the comments, please. If you've ever seen that one where the dolphin is one of the main characters, let me know. If I went too hard on the dolphin, if he's a good character, he was your favorite character in the 90s. I appreciate you guys sticking around and tuning in. Okay. Hey, if you stuck around this long, I appreciate you. Please subscribe. I am on my journey to my first 1,000 subscribers. And if you're watching me on Twitch, you can find me on YouTube at Angel Not Geek Stuff. Yeah, but I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and hopefully y'all had some fun. All right, God bless to you and your family. Salutations to the nations. Peace.
Angel Knot.